Shalom, friends. I am Hananya Naftali. Today, we're talking about the Houthis, an Iranian-backed terror group operating in Yemen. Now, this isn't just another missile-launching militia. The Houthis are the crown jewel now of Iran's last hope in its crumbling campaign to dominate the Middle East. After Hezbollah has been weakened and Hamas is pretty much done, and Syria's Assad regime, of course, has fallen, Iran is now relying heavily on the Houthis. But as we saw this week, Israel is not letting them gain any ground. When the Houthis fired a ballistic missile at central Israel, Israel struck hard, struck back, of course, and in doing so, we sent a message not just to the Houthis, but to Tehran itself, saying, you're running out of time and your game is falling apart. So let's actually discuss and talk about what happened on Thursday. Today, the Houthis fired a ballistic missile toward Israel. Our aero defense system intercepted it, but fragments landed in Ramat Gan in central Israel, damaging a school. Thank God no one was hurt, but this attack was part of a larger campaign. I don't know a country that would tolerate attacks on schools, but over the past year, the Houthis have launched more than 200 missiles and 170 drones at Israel, many supplied by Iran. But this time, Israel wasn't waiting for another attack. Within hours, 14 Israeli fighter jets were in the air, striking key Houthi targets in Yemen. These weren't random attacks, they were strategic strikes, very precise, designed to cripple the Houthis' ability to function. So Israel targeted ports, power stations, military ships, critical assets. They were all destroyed. A nation that ignores attacks is inviting more attacks. And a nation that defends itself decisively earns peace. But before we continue, if you want to take a bold stand against anti-Semitism, against BDS, and stand for Israel, then I invite you to visit theisraelstore.com, where you can support local businesses. So let's take a step back and actually look at the bigger picture. The Houthis are the last leg of Iran's axis of evil in the Middle East. Hezbollah in Lebanon is severely weakened in this war. Israel served it massive blows, from the Beeper operation to the elimination of Hezbollah's leader Nasrallah. It has received a massive blow. Hamas is in chaos. Israel's military has dismantled much of its leadership, taking out Yahya Sinwar and other top terrorists. It destroyed Hamas's infrastructure in Gaza. You know, Hamas thought it would be able to bring the end of Israel, but the only end that we see is the one of Hamas. In Syria, Bashar al-Assad's regime is a shadow of its former self. Syria played a big role in Iran's plans to destroy Israel. But now with the fall of the Assad regime, Iran will probably try to form some coalition with the rebels. But the problem is that the rebels are Sunnis, and the regime in Iran is Shia Islam. They've been fighting each other for hundreds of years. But this leaves the Houthis, as I mentioned, as Iran's last reliable Shia proxy. Tehran is desperate to use them to keep its regional ambitions alive. But Israel's strikes in Yemen show that even this final piece of Iran's strategy is not safe. The last piece of a crumbling tower won't hold the weight forever. So let's talk about why the Houthis are strategic. Well, geography makes the Houthis uniquely dangerous. Yemen sits at the crossroads of some of the world's most critical trade routes. Number one, the Red Sea. This waterway connects the Mediterranean Sea to the Indian Ocean, carrying a significant portion of the world's oil and goods. And secondly, the Bab el-Mandab Strait. This narrow passage between Yemen and Djibouti is a choke point for global shipping. So whoever controls it can disrupt the flow of trade, raising the costs of stuff and creating global instability. So by attacking ships in the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandab Strait, the Houthis create chaos that affects everyone, not just Israel or Saudi Arabia. But over the past year, the Houthis have targeted over 100 vessels, including oil tankers, humanitarian ships, and even American military vessels. This makes the Houthis a strategic threat, not just to the Middle East, but to the entire world. Geography doesn't care about intentions. Whoever controls the choke points controls the game. So with all these investment that Iran has been making with the Houthis, we see that it's all falling apart. Iran's goal has always been clear: to dominate the Middle East using its network of proxies without getting its hands dirty. By arming and funding groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, Tehran has tried to surround its enemies, particularly Israel, and destabilize the region. But that plan is unraveling. Hezbollah is struggling in Lebanon, as I mentioned. Hamas is in disarray. Syria's Assad regime is gone. And now, with the Houthis facing serious setbacks in Yemen, Iran's axis of resistance is looking more like an axis of failure. Israel's strikes on Houthi targets in Yemen are a direct challenge to Iran's strategy. Because by crippling the Houthis' ability to function, Israel is showing to Iran that its proxies won't be safe anywhere. Not in Gaza, not in Lebanon, and certainly not in Yemen. The Houthis, you gotta understand, aren't just a problem for the Middle East. They're a problem for the world. Because Iran seeks to dominate the world, starting with the Middle East. And let me explain. Number one, attacks on ships. The Houthis have targeted international vessels, disrupting global trade. These attacks raise oil prices, affect supply chains, and create instability that ripples across the globe, global economy, inflation. Number two, threats to the US and Western interests. The Houthis have launched missiles and drones, listen carefully, at American ships in the Red Sea. They have even seized commercial vessels claiming that they were tied to Israel or the US. Can you believe it? The Houthis seizing ships with ties to the US. I'm sure Trump wouldn't tolerate that. And number three is, of course, humanitarian impact. Because by attacking humanitarian ships, the Houthis make it harder to get food and aid to people in need, turning Yemen's already dire humanitarian crisis into a catastrophe. The US has responded by launching strikes against Houthi targets in Yemen. But this is not just America's fight, it's a global one. The Houthis' actions affect everyone, from families in Europe to businesses in Asia, and of course, each and every one of us, whether you're in Israel or in America. Terrorists with global reach need global accountability. And let's not forget what this is really about. The Houthis represent destruction, chaos, and a rejection of progress. They attack schools, bomb infrastructure, and spread fear. Their vision for the Middle East is one of oppression and darkness. They want to take everyone back in time. Israel, on the other hand, stands for hope, resilience, and the future. While the Houthis destroy, Israel builds. And while they spread terror, Israel innovates and thrives. This is more than just a military conflict. It's a battle between two completely different visions for the world. And history honors builders, not destroyers. So, what's Israel's strategy in, especially with this recent strike? We saw that Israel's ability to strike Houthi targets 2,000 kilometers away, it's a reminder of its unmatched strength. This wasn't just about Yemen, it was a message to all of Israel's enemies. Distance won't protect you. If you threaten Israel, you'll face the consequences. And Defense Minister Israel Katz summed it up just perfectly. He said, those who raise a hand against Israel will have it severed. That's exactly what happened this week. Strength isn't just about what you can do. It's about making your enemies think twice before they act. So what can the world learn from all of this? First of all, the Houthis' actions are a wake-up call for the world. This is not just Israel's fight, as I said. It's everyone's. The Red Sea is a vital artery for global trade, and the Houthis' attacks endanger the entire international community. I'm sure that nobody likes inflation and raising prices. The US has already acted, but more needs to be done. Western nations must recognize the Houthis for what they really are, a terror group that threatens global stability. Ignoring terror is never neutral. It either grows or it is defeated. It's your choice. So what comes next? Well, the Houthis and their Iranian backers are now scrambling. Israel's strikes in Yemen have crippled their operations, and the world is starting to wake up to the threat that they pose. But this is far from over. The Houthis are desperate, and Iran won't give up its ambitions that easily. So the international community must stay vigilant and united in the fight against terror. The fight against terror is not just about winning battles. It's about denying evil any room to grow. So before I go, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more updates like this. Until next time, and remember this, Israel is strong, determined, and ready to defend its people. And as long as we stand strong, together, terror will never win. Thank you guys so much for joining this update. Wishing you a happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas. Right now here in the United States, sending blessings your way.